Good morning and welcome to the 15th edition of Grapes and Greens. And I'm delighted to say that I am with a very good friend of mine, David Withers, who's been in the golf trade for how many years, David?
Yeah, it's tough to work out, isn't it? But over 35 anyway.
Over 35 years, exactly. And yeah, we've had some experiences together, one that we're going to come on to, which I will never ever forget. But I'm looking forward to, firstly, understanding your wine story.
Sure.
You've got a couple, I believe, and we're going to try a nice drop from South Africa as well.
Yeah, so when you very kindly asked me to do this, I was just thinking, where does my wine story come from? What really hits my palate and makes me think about a story? And we were doing some demos down in South Africa. And I love South Africa. I mean, we've travelled there quite extensively, and we tried to really build up our brand. This is back when I was at Jacobs and trying to build up our brand down there. And so we spent some time in Cape Town, and then we run out through Hermanus and done some demos there. And then on that garden route down towards George and Fancourt and so on. And we ended up spending the night in Plettenberg Bay. Mm-hmm. And there was a colleague of mine who knew somebody who had kind of I'll call it a restaurant, but it was fundamentally his front room. And he was a fisherman. He'd go out during the morning, catch whatever fish there were available. There was no menu. That evening, he'd cook up the fish with a suitable carbohydrate and what have you, and and then he'd serve it to a small amount of people. And there were probably only a dozen or 16 of us who would be seated in this room. And we could look out over Plet Bay, and it was just amazing. And then we were like, well, what are we going to drink with this? Yeah. And actually, that region's probably more known for its sort of Sauvignon Blancs than it is for its reds. But he came out with this unlabeled red wine. So it was from a friend of his. I think it was a cousin of his who made his wines up in the just in the mountains there at the back of that area. And so he brought that down. And I just remember drinking this kind of strong, fruity Cabernet, eating fresh fish, looking out over Plet Bay, and thinking, you know what, I'm being paid to do this.
It's not bad,
this is my job. I'm going from golf course to golf course in one of the most beautiful areas of the world, and then you get an experience like that. So
and that's where Grapes and Greens come from. It's golf and wine are so combined. We've always highlighted the fact that what do the Open champion play for? They play for the Power Jug.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Wine is there from the wine merchants back in the 1800s. But so many people, as we know in golf, enjoy a glass of wine. Yeah. And either being on a vineyard or on a golf course, usually in a pretty nice place in the world.
Absolutely.
It's not bad.
Yeah, no, it's good.
The beauty of being in the warehouse today is that when you said South African, I got like 320 wines, but there's about £750,000 of wine behind us, which is quite cool at Wine and Earth. So I picked out part of the Lighthouse collection, which is called a Moody Lagoon, and it's a blend. Why I've also chosen this is that Manning's Heath was bought by the owner of this particular vineyard, and she turned 9 holes of the new course into a vineyard.
Yeah, lovely.
But this is from their South African collection, and it's a blend of Shiraz, Cabernet Franc, Merlot, Cabernet Sauvignon, Petit Verdot, and Malbec. Mm. So have a check, have a slurp, and see what you think. Cheers. Good to see you.
Yeah, it's very good, isn't it?
Not bad at 9 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, I was going to say, not normally what I'm doing at 9:20 on a Friday morning. But
I think about 4 or 5 of our podcasts has been done about that time. It's like drinking wine at 9 o'clock, but hey, why not?
Any time of the exactly 6 o'clock somewhere, isn't it?
But you're originally a Godalming boy, aren't you? So pretty close to Guildford where we are today.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, I grew up in Surrey, and first jobs down here, working for Charterhouse Turf Machinery, who were down in Hazelmere.
Okay.
Which is kind of how I got into the machinery business in the first place.
How old were you then? Were you from school? Or?
No, I did sixth form college, and then actually I went to Kenya for a couple of years, and I worked in Kenya for a few years, and then came back from that, and I had been scheduled to go to university at Brunel. Okay. And I never went. Right. I just started a little business actually doing cars and stuff. I've always been mechanically minded.
Okay.
And we started, me and a colleague of mine, a friend of mine, Dave Watson, we started a little business, and we used to do a lot of work for Charterhouse Turf.
Okay.
And then we started building their machinery for them and doing stuff like that. Then they wanted us to do demos for them. And in the end, we sold our little company to them and went to work for Charterhouse.
And what age were you then? 20s then?
Yeah, 22, 23, something like that.
Pretty entrepreneurial back then.
Yeah, early days. And then did 3 or 4 years with those guys, and then was offered a job with Jacobson as a sales guy.
Okay.
And then left Charterhouse, went to work for Jake as area sales manager.
Okay. In the south?
Actually, it was the west.
Oh, okay.
I didn't actually live in my area, which was a bit unfortunate. But I always wanted to move to some of the other or bigger companies within the trade. And this sounds really silly now, but one of the things that at the time used to frustrate me was, so all the Charterhouse stuff is stuff that requires a tractor to operate it. It's all implements. And I'd be going around shows and open days and all that. And I was always like the poor relation, because I was always begging tractors off people, please, can I borrow your tractor so I can unload my trailer and do this, that, and the other. And I was like, God, it must be lovely to have these machines that you drive up onto the trailer and that you don't have to go around begging for transportation from other people in the industry. So on a very sort of silly basis, in some ways, I'd always sort of looked, yearningly at these other type of organisations, and then obviously we were a small fish in a big pond, and Jake was one of the big 3 in the industry at the time, and so it was a great opportunity to go there and work for those guys.
Yeah. And was that really on the golf side, or was that?
Yeah.
Oh, it was purely on the golf side.
I mean, Jake back in those days was 97% golf. I mean, we were golf really.
What year would this have been?
I joined Jake in '92.
Oh, okay. So that's the year I was at Wentworth.
Yeah.
So interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it was I remember 92 I joined Wentworth, and Chris Kennedy, you all know well, was a Toro man.
Well, they had been Ransoms, actually, and they switched from Ransoms to Toro round about, I don't know, either a bit before or a bit after that.
Yeah. And that's where Chris was great as a mentor from an agronomy perspective for me, because he came down from Haggs Castle, and with a view from the European tour, like John Paramore and Ken Schofield, we need this guy to put grass onto the West Course at Wentworth, and he did it very successfully.
He did. There for a long time, wasn't he?
Yeah, and learnt a lot. There were the 3 cardinals then as well. Walter Woods.
Yeah.
Mr. Brown at Turnberry.
Yeah.
I remember
George. Yeah.
And obviously, the person actually who was in charge of the West Course under Chris at that particular time was Jim McKenzie. Celtic Manor. So you'll see that. It's a small relationship when you're at that level, isn't it? And golf is like that. It's very small, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Even worldwide, I think.
Yes, I think that's true. I mean, it's a bit Hotel California, isn't it? You can check out, but you never leave, kind of thing. Most people, once they're in the golf market, don't disappear and go elsewhere. They might move around within it, as you have, as I have. You kind of move around within it, but you typically stay within that. And I think that's true of the superintendents as well. And you see some of the superintendents move on up.
The modern ones, I think, do tend to now sort of trying to aspire into quite quickly, I think.
Yeah, it's more into management. But often staying in golf, they want to be club managers. They want to, they still want to be in the golf space, but move up to a more senior role. I think you're right. I think the superintendents now, generally speaking, are better educated than they would have been 50 years ago, 40 years ago, and they've got that sort of ambition and drive to move on and up, and they've got the education to be able to back that up. So I think you see more and more of that now.
And again, it's a very close-knit community where they're very open to getting people to learn. The opportunities to go and work on Open Championships at a young age and see how to present a golf course for the elite is great when you're young, isn't it? It's fantastic.
Well, I think as well it comes down to the fact that within golf, nobody really sees their next golf course as a competitor.
Correct.
We're all colleagues in this. I mean, I think, if you were in the gym space and you've got a gym here and then somebody else opens a gym just down the road, there'd be this, competition, this kind of rivalry, and, one wouldn't help the other. Whereas I've just never seen that in golf. I've seen it where, you know, you've got this machine and I can't afford one. Can I borrow yours? Yeah, sure. You know, we'll bring it over. We'll do. You know, there's this camaraderie within golf. I think that people just help one another.
Yeah.
And I think it does come down to that thing that we do see ourselves as colleagues rather than as competitors.
Yeah, no, definitely. So you're in the West, you're sales manager, knocking on doors of golf clubs. You must be quite successful because you kind of moved up the chain.
Yeah, I did. It was interesting because it was about that time that the Americans came over here, if you remember. So up until that time, I want to say that generally speaking, all of the golf courses in the UK were pretty much individually owned.
Yeah.
There weren't any of the chains that had developed at that point. And during that time, sort of that early 90s period is when American Golf came in, and then they were probably the first and, you know, who drove a lot of it. And then Club Company arrived, and then there was Crown and, you know, some of those. But it was all around about that time that we started to see Barrelfield was another one. We started to see these, you know, groups of golf course develop. And for me, that next step that I was able to take, which was sort of towards the later part of the 90s, sort of 96, 95, 96, 97, somewhere around about there. All blurs into one, doesn't it, after a while? But somewhere around about there, was I spent a lot of my time working with those groups.
Yeah.
And because they just happened to be headquartered in the area that I was near. And so I just kind of got into those. And so my next role that I got at Jake was they created a role for me, which was National Accounts Manager.
Right.
And so I moved from being the regional sales manager for one area. Then I moved on. I took over national accounts, and we backfilled my area with a guy, Alan Prickett, who you'll know, I would think.
Yeah.
And Alan and I have worked together pretty much since that time as well. So he's always we've worked together for 30 plus years as well. So so that was my next role.
We have a lot of people who are listening to our podcast who are looking at how do we. The managers, the course managers, or people outside the industry want to get into it. And, you know, you suddenly go to a national account manager and you've got people for the first time who are probably reporting into you and you've got to rely on them to be able to get to your targets and things like that.
Yeah, actually, that was really on the next stage for me. National accounts was still an individual contributor role.
Okay.
It was very much me. I was the conduit into these corporate accounts.
Okay.
And so I kind of worked with them and tried to get them on board with the just. That was where the volume was. Yeah. I mean, it was lower margin, but it was big volume.
Yeah.
And so we spent a lot of time with those guys, and some of them are still, I think, with Jake today. I think Club Company still is to this day, which is that was the first one I actually signed up. Was the club? It was Clubhouse back then. Yes.
Clubhouse.
Okay, there you go.
The fourth employee of Clubhouse. In the UK, and I left. So that was trying to think of the year. I think it was 1996.
Okay.
And we had Duke's Dean, which is
I
another one.
remember that one. But it wasn't called Duke's Dean originally, was it? It was going to be called. Hallelujah Valley.
That's right, it was.
And there was some Japanese backer, and they struggled with the pronunciation of it, and they changed it from Hallelujah Valley to Duke's Dean. I remember that, yeah.
And Robert Brewer.
That's right.
Was the course manager, and obviously Robert's
at Wimbledon,
and doing a great job over there. And one of our clients.
Yeah.
Which is quite nice as well. So there you go.
No, it all kind of goes around, doesn't it? And,
to be fair, there's probably not that many course managers that have gone into management of golf club. The only other one I can think of is Chris
Lomos. I was going to say Chris, Yes, it's not as common here as it is in America. You see it more there.
One other, Stuart McCollum.
Oh, yes, Stuart has,
so he's doing really well at Cabot.
The new one. That's,
Cabot Highlines. He's also Bordeaux as well. He's looking after the European operation now as well. So it is a small world, but it's also, again, it comes down to, I've always been lucky to work with really good course superintendents. And I always felt that they were a bit like chefs. They had to deal with a lot of ingredients, with a lot of equipment, and produce on the right times. And I always said, if I've got good greens on the golf course and good greens off the golf course, my life is a lot easier. Yeah. But there's not many people who cross over. But again, just working with top people in the industry and seeing how they produce under pressure and manage teams is pretty good. And then the biggest thing, as you all know, is they need a really good mechanic.
Oh, 100%.
That's the biggest thing to me from a greenkeeping perspective, especially
Yep.
at top clubs.
Yep.
You know, you can't if you haven't got a good mechanic, or the mechanic is worth his weight in gold, literally,
Yep.
to keep the stuff going.
No question. I mean, all machinery breaks down, all machinery requires servicing.
Yeah.
And if you've got somebody who really knows what they're doing, you can save yourself a lot of money and a lot of aggravation.
Yeah.
And I think the real difficulty these days is the rising value of those people. And, you know, you could go and work for there's a Porsche dealership at the end of the road here, isn't there? You could probably go and work for that Porsche dealership for 30 quid an hour.
Yeah.
You know, whereas the golf course is probably trying to pay you 17 quid an hour or 18 quid an hour. Well, you know, you've got to have this real desire to be in that space to turn down the money you could get elsewhere. And I think that's been the real challenge. And then a lot of those guys get nicked by the dealers as well. You know, the dealers are going around, they're calling on people, they see that there's a really good mechanic there. They're always looking for fitters.
Yeah.
I mean, it is one of the ironies that we have a fabulous industry and yet it's very hard to get people to come into it.
Yeah.
And in fact, I was given the opportunity to speak. I spoke at the House of Parliament actually last week.
Okay.
And we had about 30 MPs turn up and a couple of guys from the Lords. So this was through the Agricultural Engineers Association that I'm a director of. And, you know, one of the things we were talking about there is how do we get it that coming into, if you like, semi-manual, it's skilled, but it's not finance. It's not, you know, these other things. How do we get it that we're not seen as second rate? How do we get it that we're not, you know, we want this equality of perception out there, you know, so that when people are talking about, well, you know, these are your possible job opportunities or career opportunities for the future, they're like, well, you should aspire to being this. Oh, well, if you can't do that, you could. No, it shouldn't be like that. These are fantastic jobs in industries where you're going to go to beautiful places, you're going to meet great people, you're going
to travel.
Absolutely, all that stuff that's there, and yet there is a perception that if you're not in that true academic space, that somehow you're settling. You're not, you know. And I think this is one of the things that we were talking to government about was, you know, we need to be seen both on the engineering side as you think about it, because it's true not just from the golf side, but even from the manufacturing side as well. You know, that people see manufacturing as dirty, smelly jobs. You know, you don't want to be doing that, but they're not. They're great jobs. You know, these days in particular, I think the facilities have been improved a lot. Health and safety has been improved a lot. Conditions are much better than they were. You know, they're good, interesting, exciting jobs. So, you know, it is one of the things we've got to try and do is to raise the profile of the industry overall, and also to just try to get this, this perceptive equality out there that actually what we're doing is just as good as going off and being a finance guy.
I think one of the biggest things was we had Nicole Wheatley. I don't know if you know Nicole. And I hadn't met her before we did the podcast. We did it right here actually, and she highlighted the fact that the Greenkeeper of the Year was a lady at Belfry. You know, and she turned up, it sort of opened the eyes that actually it's not just the men's world as well. You know, it can be. Yeah.
Well, it should be better than it is. I mean, we're still probably 95%, I'm going to say, male.
But there are, I think she will probably do a lot for encouraging others to maybe coming on board.
Absolutely.
Great.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, that's good. So, National Accounts Manager, and then marketing?
No, actually, it was about then. So it was for 95-ish, I think, there was that role as I think about it as I'm chatting. And then in 97 was the big disruption, which was the continuation of this trend that there'd been for some years, which was that the American manufacturers were buying the European manufacturers. So this started with John Deere acquired Sabo Roberine, which was a sort of municipally based engineering company, manufacturing company in Holland. And John Deere acquired them, and then Jacobson, which was the American company that I worked for, acquired Ransoms.
Right.
That was in 97.
Okay.
And then I can't remember, it was just after Toro acquired Hayter. So there were these three European companies, Hayter, Ransoms, and Sabo Roberine, all acquired by the American giants, John Deere, Toro, and Jacobson. And so that all happened at that time. So no, for me, I went from National Accounts Manager at Jacobson then to UK Sales Manager of Ransoms Jacobson, as it was. We merged Ransoms and Jacobson together. which was a big deal. I mean, Ransom's had 350 people here in the UK, I guess, because they're manufacturing over here. Jacobson had maybe 25 or 30 because we were just sales and distribution. And then obviously in America, that was almost inverted. You know, there was huge amounts of Jacobson facilities and structure over there and a much smaller Ransom structure over there. So actually of the Jacobson people who were there, probably about half a dozen of us, I guess, transferred from Jake to Ransoms, and the rest went. So yeah, that was a very interesting time. I remember the first sales meeting I had the Ransom sales guys and the Jake sales guys both reporting into me, and at the time we had completely separate distribution, different products, so they were competing with one another in the marketplace, and but coming under one management team, and that was that was a challenge. I mean, you know, and really then kicked off that very difficult period, really for the company over. You know, working that all out took a lot of time. It's interesting, you know, when I look at what I think we did well back in Jake in that pre-97 era, is that we were good at, we were outward looking, we were trying to build relationships, we were out in the marketplace. And what really I think knocked us back during that next period was we had so much to do internally. To sort out. We had two completely different dealer networks. We had two completely different and competing machinery pools. We had different staff, different skills. I mean, we had all this stuff, it all chucked into one melting pot now. And it was enormously challenging. And I think there was a period there where we lost our way because we weren't out and about. You know, I wasn't, you know, as UK sales manager, I would say, you know, I should be 80% of my time out with dealers, out with customers and stuff. And I wasn't able to do that. I was probably only out 20% of the time because the rest of the time I was just trying to sort out. And not just me, this was true across the whole company. There was so much to sort out. We became too internally focused. And so I'm sure if you'd asked customers at the time, you know, that suddenly it felt like we disappeared. Because, you know, they were used to seeing us at all these meetings, you know, there's like this, that we all go to the FEGA meetings, we go GEO, we go to, you know, there's a conference and show circuit that we all went to all the time. And then suddenly, oh no, I can't make it because I've got to get this sorted out. I can't make it because I've got to get this sorted out. And so a very challenging time there through that period.
Nick Brown through that.
Yeah, Nick joined us around those times.
Because he was a real. I think
he's the best.
He did a great job for Ransom Jacobson.
Nick is the best.
He would walk in, and you know, he's just a lovely guy. But he kind of knew how to sell. But
he did.
He wasn't a salesperson. He just
not at all. He's a relationship guy.
Exactly.
100% a relationship guy, and. Yeah, he gradually moved. He joined, probably was 98, maybe something like that, but not in a sales role. And we gradually moved him into a sales role. And it was probably late 90s, early 2000s that he really got going in that other role. And really that was towards the end of this period of internal transition that we were going through. By the time Nick came on board and started doing that work, really we'd kind of sorted out our internal mess. And now we're more externally focused again. It really was that sort of end of the 90s, very early 2000s, and I think by 2001-2 we were through it. And we were back to, come on, let's get out there, let's go meet. We kind of got our stuff.
That. Not that I was really involved, because obviously I went off to Dubai and then I came back to St Andrews at that time, and obviously we had Gordon Moyer who was really in charge of everything to do from that, so I didn't really get involved with that much. And that was pretty much heavily Toro as well.
Yeah, it was.
But I think definitely Nick was there, and I think I probably met you at that particular time as well. And it was kind of I think again, tender was up, and
we all bid, everybody bid for it and stuff. No, it is a matter of relationships more than anything else, I think. And as you mentioned, Nick was very good at that. But obviously also within these eras of huge change, there is also huge opportunity individually. And I just happened to survive through all of these changes that went on during that time, because obviously we were overstaffed in that we had two of everything. And so there was a lot of that sort of culling and changing, and people moving from pillar to post and so on. And within it all, somehow I managed to kind of gradually trickle my way up. And I think by 2002, I was sales director.
Right.
So I'd moved up. I think I'd done UK and then maybe European, and then ended up as sales director in 2002-ish, something like that.
But then America came along.
No, there was one more thing in
one.
between that, which was in 2003, I became managing director of Ransoms.
Right.
So I was then MD of Ransoms Jacobson. So I was in charge of everything for that Textron part of, so Textron obviously owned EasyGo, Jacobson, Ransoms. So I was in charge of everything basically outside of America at that point.
Right.
And then really that was the job I did for the longest time, actually. I did that from 2003 till 2011. I didn't actually go to the States till 2011. So actually I did 7 or 8 years as MD.
Did you enjoy that?
The Ransoms role. Yeah, I loved it actually, because it was one plant. I only had one plant, which was Ransoms. Our offices were at that plant, and it meant you could be very involved. I mean, I'd try and walk the floor at least a couple of times a week, just walk around the manufacturing site, see what was going on, chat to people. Engineering was right there, so you could see what was going on with the new product development. You could get much more involved in that because you were physically there, and it was your kind of one focus because you only had this one plant and engineering department to look after. And so, that was a great time, to be honest. I really, really enjoyed that that era. And we started off just looking after I think we call it eye to eye, Iceland to India. That was kind of our bit we looked after. And then after a while, they added Asia to us as well. So we started looking after Asia. Right. And it was good. We were away from that immediate American, kind of that American hard-hitting management style, because we were separated by an ocean. So whilst we were obviously still part of the American family, we were, we were left pretty much to get on with it on our own devices, and it was great fun.
Some of the equipment companies like Ping, for example, they're very similar in the fact that America is big and it's wherever. And actually, I remember doing a blog with John Clark, and it's like, you just go and look after the rest of the world.
Exactly.
Do your own thing. Yeah. And that was it. And it's got that little bit of freedom where, I'm doing it my way, really.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the reality was, the Americans are great. I don't want this to come across that we're not pro-America, but they're not always that outside looking. They're a little bit more focused on, and I understand the American market is so massive. Why do you need to look? I mean, I always remember when we were talking about EasyGo, about golf cars, and I think the southern half of Florida is a bigger market than the whole of Europe for golf cars. So literally, if you just take Dade County and 2 or 3 other counties in the southern bit of Florida, that is a bigger market than the whole of Europe. And so then when you're going into those kind of people and American companies and saying, now we need special CE European regulations you've got to meet. Oh, great. How many are you going to sell? We could sell 500. Well, I sold 500 last week to, one club. Yeah. Yeah. And so there is that difference. So we were, to a degree, allowed to plough our own furrow and do our own thing because, in some ways it was, when you added it all up, it was a big number, but when you looked at it individually, there were lots of individual little numbers that all added up to that one big number. And then the other thing is currencies. I always remember one time when I can't remember whether we had a good month or a bad month because of a big currency fluctuation that had occurred there. And they were like, man, why can't these guys all buy in dollars? And we're like, okay, so that's exactly the same as me coming to America and say, right, you guys are going to buy in pounds. Yeah. How are you going to react to that?
Yeah.
And so there was that kind of little bit of naivety about what went on outside of America. So that's why they put us in place.
Imagine, it was exciting, but from a career perspective, to have that knowledge of the rest of the world. So, and then also understand where the Americans are coming from. So when the big job to go across the pond and run the whole thing.
Yeah.
When did that first come about, and how did it come about? And how long did you think about it? Because it's a massive step.
It was a big step.
Like, I'm just going to do it. But you got to really think about those sort of positions.
Absolutely. And I would say I was really enjoying the job I was doing. But I always knew that there was no more senior job for, I was as high as I could go outside of America. And I always thought I did have one more promotion in me, if you know what I mean. I think you can look around. I'm aware of what I'm good at. I'm aware of what I'm not good at. And
good leadership.
yeah, I'm okay at that. Yeah. But there's some other bits that, you couldn't go that next step. So for me, the next step would have been right up into a proper Textron role where you're overseeing multiple industries.
Yeah, okay.
And I was like, I'm not. I struggle to get interested in other industries. I love this industry. Yeah. I know it. I know all about it. I know, I'm interested in being the most senior person I can be within Textron, within this industry. Yeah. So that next role that I was offered as president was one that I wanted. It wasn't out of the blue for me to think about that. For the first 5 or 6 years, I was busy sorting stuff out. But then, after you've been doing the same job 5 or 6 years, you're like, what's going on next then? Yeah. And so I had started, at least in my mind, thinking about, if the job came up, would I take it? And I had actually taken my wife. The company's based in Charlotte, so I'd taken my wife over to Charlotte for long weekends prior to that, just for her to look around and, if it ever came up, would you? And so there was a discussion we'd had long before I was actually offered the job. So when I was offered the job, it was a very easy yes, I'll take it.
Because a lot of people who are listening, I know a lot of club managers would love to go and work in America. You know, it's and I was one of those. I always thought I was going to go and work in America. I went for several interviews. Some I turned down, some I didn't get. But everybody sort of looks at it and go, it's so big and the money's great or whatever. But they've still got the same problems, and it comes with sometimes more of a risk. I just highlight it. I don't know if that's true.
Well, it is true. I mean, it's worth probably just spending a couple of minutes just talking about that difference between our basically European style employment and business ethos and then the American style, because there is some differences there. And I mean, it all comes down to the fact that over here, as you will know, getting rid of people is not easy.
Absolutely.
And so I think we have a tendency to tolerate mediocrity more in Europe than they do in America. Right. And that is because getting rid of really bad people in Europe is okay. This guy's completely useless. Yeah, he's got to go. It's really difficult to get rid of guys who are just about okay. We call them ABABs, average bear at best.
Okay.
So he's an average bear at best, an ABAB. So getting rid of an ABABs is really difficult, but it's not in America.
Right.
You're an ABAB. We don't want you. We're going to get somebody better. Off you go.
Wow.
2 weeks notice.
Yeah, and that's what I mean by the risk.
And so everything is 2 weeks notice. Yeah. I mean, like I had a different contract. I had a different contract because I made sure that that was a negotiation that I had right at the beginning. But for my VPs, guys work for me, vice president. This is the senior guys. 2 weeks notice. Jeez. So there is that inherent insecurity of employment in America, which is what drives, generally speaking, very hardworking, creative, trying to keep the boss happy, all that kind of stuff, which is what you see in America. I mean, there is that. I'll tell you a story as to how it works out differently. I mean, I had a PA over here, Dawn, who was fabulous. And somebody would want to talk to me about something, sell me something. They wanted to sell me a new laser cutter for the factory or whatever it happened to be. And I'd say, no, I'm not interested, to get rid of him. Send him a nice letter, but get rid of him. And we get this she'd draft this lovely letter saying, dear Bob, David was so interested in your presentation and really is considering that the laser might be a capital investment for the future, but right now it's not actually the priority and we're doing something else, but we keep all your stuff on record and we'd love to see you again. Lovely letter go out. I did the same thing to my PA in America. I'm not interested, get rid of him. Literally, the letter was, David's not interested. Please don't call again. Because that's what I told her to do. Yeah. Yeah. Whereas, there's this difference between I will do what the boss tells me to do in America. In Europe, it's like, he doesn't really mean that, does he? There's that interpretation, and they can afford to have that interpretation because they know that their employment is actually secure. Whereas in America, where your employment is insecure, boss told me to do this.
I do it.
I do it.
Yeah.
So whilst everybody always thinks of America as being less bureaucratic, less hierarchical than Europe, it's not. It's more. It's actually more bureaucratic and more hierarchical than Europe is. And I always had an expression I used to use, which is that the more senior you are within an organisation, the bigger the shadow you throw.
Yeah.
And you know, as president of the company, you throw this big shadow. And I'd be, you know, I've always been fairly flippant or, you know, sort of casual with my language and stuff. And, you know, somebody would show me some machine or whatever that they were developing. I go, that is just so ugly. That is the worst looking thing I've ever seen. You know, just take it away and do something else. And what I really meant was, you know, I don't really like that bit there. And things. Well, the guy would be suicidal. You know, the president of the company said I developed the most ugly thing he'd ever seen in his life. And I became very conscious over time of the shadow that I cast and the words that I could use when I was a more junior person, I couldn't use as a more senior person. You know, another expression that he had is that, you know, the words fall from a higher height because you're more senior, and therefore they have more impact and they have more power. So the things that you could say to people when you were a mid-level manager or whatever, and everybody's like, yeah, well, it's just Dave, who cares, sort of thing. And then suddenly you're, oh, no, but you're the president of the company and you're saying these things. So actually it was a real learning curve for me for that first year or so, was just to rein it in a bit and not to, you know, to be more careful with my language.
I think you do. I had a little bit like that when I went to Lot Lomond. You know, I was part of the management team, senior management team at St Andrews. I've been a GM of, you know, in Dubai, that type of thing. And we're still learning. I was, 40 when I went to Lot Lomond. It's a big job at 40. And I'd taken over from a very senior executive, very different role. And suddenly you realise who the members are, but also you kind of look at who the staff are as well. And I had to make some changes as well. But you've learned very quickly, everybody listens to what you say, because you're the guys signing the paycheck at the end of the day. You know, that's what it is, isn't it? And it is, not to the degree you had, but even in that sort of scenario where we had, like when I was there, you know, with seasonals, we probably had 420 people, both at Lot Lomond and at Dundonald, which was a lot, far too many really. So then through my tenure, cutting it down to 95 was really hard.
Yeah, no,
and that wasn't due, there were some really good people, and it was tough. But that's as somebody said to me, that's what you get paid the big bucks for.
Yeah.
You know, that's it.
It's true.
So, and that's where we really hooked up. I reached out to you because I had Club Inc. at the time.
That's right.
And
you were doing development in Mexico, I think.
We were looking at, it never went ahead actually. But we had a member at Castilian de Bosco, a lovely guy, and he had this beautiful piece of land, went out and saw it. And it was Nick, really. I was working with Nick. And, you know, I felt that we had to give everybody a chance. You know, we knew the guys at Toro really well. John Deere, obviously, and then yourselves. And I was like, well, yeah, let's. And you very kindly invited me, firstly, to go and see you at Charlotte, so we could see the whole thing, which was great. And then we got the opportunity to go to Augusta, which was amazing on your invite. What was your relationship with Augusta? What did you do from a Ransom Jacobson perspective? You obviously provided them with
we provided some of the equipment there. You know, they weren't tied in with any manufacturer. They bought what they wanted, and actually most of the equipment that you supplied into there had to be painted sort of grey or green, so it just kind of blended in. Like, you can't always tell what it is, no. So we had a good relationship with those guys, as they did with Toro, as they did with Deere. I have played it once, yes. I did play it once, 2013 it was. Okay. Cool. So we had a good relationship with them. When they decided they were going to do this Berkman's Place, and for you know, people who haven't had the opportunity to go there, it's unbelievable.
It's unbelievable.
It's unbelievable. So the back of the fifth, if you remember the fifth hole, you know, it's a really hard hole in it, 450 or something like that. Dog legs left slightly. If as you're walking towards the green on your right hand side, you walk through a hole in the hedge there. There was a whole area that was called Berkman's Nursery, and they bought that land, and then they developed it and it's just unbelievable. You got 5 high-end restaurants, loads of retail, all the rest of it, bars, everything. And literally it's used for 1 week a year.
Yeah.
So for 51 weeks a year, big chains around the doors, all locked up. And then for 1 week a year, it's unbelievable, yeah. And then they've built replicas, smaller replicas of 4 of the greens. And they have the guys there in their white, like caddy suits. And you can go and putt, and they, as we did. Yeah. Well, and it's just unbelievable.
But it was amazing because the first day, because generally, and I had this when I was lucky enough to go before with Gary Player, you kind of have tickets for certain days and you're allowed to do so. I think you kindly said, like, go to Bergman's on the Saturday, but we can't give you on the Sunday.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, no, look, I'm delighted. Yeah. And then, so I remember.
But then we did end up there on Sunday, didn't we?
Yeah. And what happened was that on the Saturday, it was all kind of regimented. And you got lots of people, and you know, everybody's going through the opportunity to play the temporary, you know, the
little greens
and all that kind of stuff. And it was busy and whatever. And then towards I think we went back to the cottage at night and you go, oh, fancy playing Sage Valley tomorrow morning? I was like, yes, please, that'll be great. And then we'll go back and look, let's do it. And we very kindly, I think I played with you actually.
Yeah, I think we did, yeah.
And Sage Valley is
unbelievable,
pretty amazing as well.
Yeah.
And you know, you had a membership, a membership there, and it was, anybody gets a chance to play that, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And then I think after the round you said, actually, I've got a meeting. Do you fancy coming with me? So I said, yeah, okay, let's go for that. I was like, yeah, I'm coming to Bergman's again, definitely. Yeah. And then you said, like, let's have a putt. And there was nobody there.
Yeah, it was empty, wasn't it?
And I still, to this day, I'm thinking about it now, going, I'm having a practice putting competition at Augusta.
Yeah. On the Sunday.
On the Sunday, before I go, and as we did, go to the pub and watch Jordan Spieth
knock it in the water,
and then Will it come and win?
That's
which
right.
was brilliant.
It was
completely surreal,
yeah.
and people would go, "That didn't really happen."
Yeah.
Well, I can tell you
it did. Yeah, it did. Now, it is one of the great joys of being in the, you know, as we were 90% golf, 80% golf, something like that back then, and you know, some of those years I'd get to every major.
Yeah.
You know, because we used to do hospitality. You know, I've always believed that this is a relationship industry, and if you believe that, then what you need to do is to create experiences at which your staff can build relationships.
Yeah.
And so that's what we used to do, is think about, well, so what experiences can we develop or go to where our staff will be interacting with the customer base that we want them to be, and to give them that opportunity to build relationships. And so we would entertain all of the majors each year and have people along. And that's what we always used to look at. It was all about, you know, if you really believe in relationships, then you've got to generate experiences for people to build relationships around. Yeah. You know, here we are today, still talking about what something happened 9 years ago.
9 years, yeah.
Exactly. And you'll still remember that in 20 years.
Absolutely, 100%.
So these are the kind of things that that we had the opportunity to do, and as one of the bigger players in golf, we had the budget and everything else to be able to do it, and so it was lovely. Yeah, it was really good.
We did a podcast last week with Tom Reed, who was one of the owners at Sunningdale Heath. Really good guy, young, up and coming, and he highlighted just kind of what you're saying is people buy people.
100%.
And exactly what you're saying, it's not about selling the product, it's building relationships and having an environment that people want to go to where you actually get to know that person outside of a 5-minute sales phone call.
But I think that's also where golf is so good for all industries. Any industry where you're relationship building. You know, I always say to people, if in that 5-hour period of playing golf, and I'm not advocating slow play, I'm including a drink before and a drink afterwards and all the rest. So if in that sort of 5-6 hour window, you don't build the relationship with the guy you're with, you are not a salesman.
Correct.
That is one of the best environments because you're doing something else, you've got this shared focus, you've got this shared goal, and it is a perfect environment actually for you walking down the fairways, chatting. You know, it's a great opportunity to build relationships, and I think that's why golf is still, you know, that businessman's tool. Because if you're in an industry that values relationships, golf is one of the best.
I always say if someone's half decent at golf, and you know, so if they go after you, university and, I can't really afford it, I always say, like, just keep going with it, because the best thing is you can get on the company golf day.
Yeah.
And when you're in the company golf day, you don't know who you're going to be paired with.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, you're probably going to meet the chief executive or the president or whatever, because you play golf.
We'll play golf.
Suddenly,
yeah.
But I would never have that opportunity to meet you if I was in the warehouse in Kentucky, X, Y, and Z. But if I play golf,
you might.
I have.
Yeah, exactly.
And that opens that door. So it opens not only from a business perspective, but also from a career perspective as well. I think I had Canute Wild was our director for hospitality at Loch Lomond. Great guy, really super ambitious, and actually has just left being the GM of the Barclay Hotel.
Okay.
Done a great career. And he said, like, he didn't play golf when he came to Loch Lomond, but he tried to play, and he's a bandit. He's a bandit of 14 now.
Yeah.
And he said, Neil, the beauty of working and knowing about golf and playing golf is none of the other hotel managers in the group, from the Barclays perspective, play golf, but the managing director loved to play golf. So I got 4.5 hours extra with the managing director to know exactly what was going on, what I had to do, and wherever. The others didn't. Because they had maybe an hour lunch or something like that, which is very much stayed. And, I've got to talk business, whereas life comes into 5 hours as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. No question. Yeah.
Yeah. And then decided that you I think the position was going to move down to Augusta. Was that right?
Yeah, there were some changes they wanted to make in terms of merging. EasyGo and Jacobson were separate companies within Textron, and they wanted to kind of merge the two. And that was 2016, actually. Okay. So that was around about that time that we were at Augusta.
Yeah.
And I'd done 6 years there, 5-6 years.
Right.
We didn't take our children with us. They were both at university at the time. So I knew we weren't going to America forever. Yeah. It was always going to be a period.
Yeah.
Whether that was 5 years or 10 years or 2 weeks, it could have been, Exactly. You didn't really know. And so I think at that point, we'd enjoyed Charlotte. Charlotte is a very lovely place to be. Yeah. Augusta is a different place to be. The golf course is unbelievable. The rest of it, perhaps, it's not quite the same city that Charlotte is. And it just felt actually like time. Mm-hmm. I felt like we'd done a lot. I'd done a couple of acquisitions over there. I'd kind of reshaped the company a little bit. And I felt like it had been a good run.
Yeah, but also, from where you started, it's a long time with one company.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I did 25 years with Jake.
It can't really go any further, so that's pretty good.
So I think we decided that no, that was going to be the end of it for us. Yeah. And I was part sad. In some ways, if you'd asked me, I'd probably have said, yeah, no, I'll stay there till I retire.
Right.
But those jobs were exhausting as well. Those senior roles.
I put down in the questions before, I was like, was it a lonely job?
Yeah, it was to a degree. There were people who I trusted that you could talk to. You weren't as involved in any one plant because we had 2 or 3 different plants and stuff like that. So it wasn't like when I was at Ransom's where you kind of knew everybody and everything. You were a little bit more distant because there was just too much. Yeah. You just couldn't know everything that was going on. And, Textron, who were the company that owned us, they were big organisations, very professional, very organised and so on, but very demanding in terms of...
shareholders.
Yeah, they've got shareholders, exactly, and rightly so. So it's tiring. Yeah. And I felt like actually at about that time, we were like, you know what? I think this probably is the trigger. Yeah. So rather than up sticks and move again within America, if we're going to move, let's move home. Yeah. And so we up sticks and then moved home and actually took a year off. I actually took a year off, 2017. Yeah. So
you enjoyed that as well?
I did actually. Yeah. I did a little bit of consulting. I helped out Golf Environment Organisation. They were doing some business planning at the time. I did a little bit of work with them, and then there was a couple of other people who just wanted a bit of distribution advice and stuff like that. So I did a few bits and bobs with them, and then actually about halfway through 2017, Iseki, who just to kind of give a bit of background, Izeki have been distributed by Jacobson in the UK since '95.
Right.
So actually, I was one of the people who went to Izeki in '95 as Jacobson, saying we'd like to distribute your product, because at the time it was distributed by Massey Ferguson.
Yeah,
who were very ag focused. So I'd always had a very strong relationship with those guys going back to the '90s, and they were interested in having distribution that was solely focused on their brand rather than focused on all these other brands. Because at Ransom, we had Ransoms, Jacobson, Cushman, Easygo, Turfco, Smithco. We had 100 brands. Which one do you want? And they were just, they wanted something where the distribution focus, if you like, was more specifically around their product line. So they asked me to just do a feasibility study for them, which I did. And then they said, well, would you do it for us? And so I said, yeah, we'd do that. Unfortunately, with my relationships that I still have with Ransoms and Textron, we did a very amicable divorce, if you like, taking Izeki out of there. We made sure they didn't lose any money, that, we bought all the equipment they had, anything that was blue we bought, and we just made sure that there was no, and to be fair, on their side, they were brilliant. They worked with us on it, and so we had a very amicable split there, and then I've done the last 8 years.
Just like only 20% of your business is now golf.
Yes, that would be right. Yeah, I mean, like back in the day, it was mainly. I mean, the big thing that's changed for us is COVID was the best thing that's ever happened to Izeki. We've always done well with golf. We've always done well with councils. We've always done well in that professional space, and that's mainly because of the relationships we had as Ransoms. Where were our relationships? They were in golf and professional. And the area we really tapped into during COVID was these high net worth individuals. And, everybody, a lot of guys in the city, they bought a separate place out in the country. There was a lot of money sloshed out of the cities and into the country during COVID. And a lot of those guys were like, 20 grand for a lawnmower? Sure, sign me up. Oh, tractor as well? Yeah, not a problem. And so we massively increased our business, held it in golf, still growing in golf, but whereas golf would have been 40% of our business, now we've doubled the business with all this other stuff. It's
probably good margin.
It's great margin, it's good, and it's good work. So golf's still very important to us, but it's not the only thing we do anymore. And so we're kind of focused on that mixture of high net worth individuals, golf, and then municipalities.
Right. 2 questions we always ask our guests is, if you won the golf lottery, it's like a whole bunch of cash, what would you actually go and do that you think you haven't done? I mean, you've done a hell of a lot. Obviously.
Yeah. The one place that I've missed in all of my travel, and I think I've been to 60 different countries trading, for business, and I've played golf in a lot of them. I've never been to New Zealand.
It's beautiful, New Zealand.
Yeah, everybody says it's amazing, and I feel, and I've seen the pictures like Cape Kidnappers and all that kind of stuff, and I feel like I've missed out there. And I've been fortunate enough to play a lot of the top courses in the world over the years, but I've never done down there. And nice.
Clarity, those courses are pretty special.
Maybe one day.
Yeah, that's good. And then one last game of golf. Where would you play, with whom, and why? Yeah.
So I think I really got re-energized into golf when we moved to America.
Right.
And I think you probably came there with me, but the Peninsula Club was the club we were members at. My wife didn't play golf till we moved to America. She started playing at Peninsula Club. And it was our social life there. We were there, and the guys were great. We loved it. So I think it would have to be Peninsula Club with my wife.
Right. Very cool. Very cool. Yeah. That's a nice one. It's amazing the number of people who say their wife and their family and kids or wherever they play golf. And it just, because I think you spend so much time apart.
Absolutely.
Because you're working, then it becomes a special time to be able to do it at a special place that has so many memories that are important to both of you, kind of thing. David, on that note, it's been fascinating. I'm sure that great way to finish season 1, as they say.
There you go.
This is the 15th episode, and I think a lot of people will resonate with what you say, especially people who are in senior management and or going through that process that you've been through. But also, I think for people who are starting out and going, okay, I'm really ambitious, and this is what's maybe in front of me. So
Yeah, I think you can have a great career within this industry if you just kind of knuckle down and get on with it.
get on with it, absolutely, and probably not try and rush it too much.
No,
Just make sure
you
do
got time.
a good job and really enjoy it. Exactly. So as always,
Cheers.
It's been great and
Pleasure.
enjoy
Nice
the
to see
wine.
you.
Yeah, nice to see you. Bang on.
All good?